Most chess games are not decided in a fancy checkmate, rather, they are decided in the endgame. And this is where masters really separate themselves from normal average chess players. Today I'm going to be showing you how to play like a chess master in the endgame, and by the end of this video, you'll know the 5 habits that strong chess players use to squeeze out a win in positions where beginners might only draw or even lose. And to better help us understand the endgame technique, the proper technique, we're going to be going over gameplay between two players you may have heard of, Jose Raul Capablanca and Savili Tartakower. I'm sorry if I messed up the first name for Tartakower. I've never even seen his first name before. This is a game that was played between these two very strong people, players, I should say, rather, in New York in 1924. And what I want you to I'm going to go over the whole game, but I want you to mostly focus on the end game because this is why we're here. This is what the whole point of the game is. And besides this game, we're also going to be going over those 5 tips I told you about. So the first one is the mindset shift. Also, please don't mind me. I have the things over here. I have the game over here. So I'm going to be going over the tips first, I believe. But stick around for the game because the game is going to be great. Point number 1 is the mindset shift. Masters see the end game as an opportunity and not a chore. They simplify when ahead, exchanging pieces but keeping pawns. This is very important for people, no matter what rating you are. You always when you're up in material and it's the end game, you should really trade down pieces, get rid of pieces because that means your opponent has less and less pieces rather. And but what we see in games is beginners do the exact opposite. They trade pawns and keep pieces, right? Which it reduces winning chances because if you're ahead in pawns, you want to trade down pieces because you have a better chance of making, say, you have a better chance of promoting a pawn. Rather, if you trade down all of your pawns, the pieces just move around. You and your opponent have the same pieces. It's gonna end up in a draw or even a negative. It's gonna end in a loss for you maybe. Point number 1, very important. I really need to get that cemented. Is once again the mindset shift. Masters use the endgame as an opportunity, not a chore. I want you guys to remember that. They you see the endgame as an opportunity, not a chore. Okay. And then they simplify when ahead, exchanging pieces but keeping pawns. So very important thing to get down is exchange when you're up in material. Doesn't matter if it's pawns or pieces. Um, you want to trade down your pieces and not your pawns. Again, if then again, if you I'm going back on myself here, but if you do have a good attack or whatever with your pieces and not your pawns, there could be something to say for that, I guess. But most of the time, if it's like a pretty especially if you're even in pieces, but you have more pawns than your opponent, definitely trade down the pieces. You don't want to be keeping the same amount of pieces. You want to be um, just having more pawns than your opponent. Actually, for the tips section, I'm gonna leave it full screen, okay, and then we can get back to the game. Okay, that was point number 1, the mindset shift. Point number 2 is king activity. King activity is one of, if not the most important part of the endgame. In the endgame, your king is a fighter, not a bystander. Okay, masters activate the king early in the endgame, while beginners often leave it sitting on the back rank or just very passive. A more active king can decide the entire game. If your king is just sitting there on the 8th rank or the 1st rank, just hanging out, chilling, maybe he's got his feet up somewhere. I don't know what he's doing. Just no, you don't want that. You want your king very active in the end game, in the center of the board, getting things done, marching the pawns down, trying to promote them. Also, kind of goes back to point number 1 about keeping the pawns there. Pawns are there to promote. The king has to help with that. All right. Point number 2, king activity. Your king is a fighter, not a bystander. Very important point as well. Point number 3, very important as well, is pawn play. You could make and maybe like a series of videos on just the importance of your pawns in the endgame. Okay, this is why point number one said trade down pieces and keep your pawns, right? Pawn play. Masters know the importance of creating passed pawns. Okay, if you don't know, passed pawns are pawns that are only stopped by pieces and not by pawns. For example, um, well, I'm not going to show you example, but you know, I think you have a pawn, let's say on, if you guys can picture this, you have a pawn on, let's say it's, no, let me go back to the board, actually. Um, okay. How do I do this? Let me see. Maybe I make a new, could maybe just make a new board, I guess. Give me a second here, guys. I'm just going to, let's say here. Sorry, this is very off script, but I kind of need to do this, so sorry about that. Um, this. Okay. Okay, sorry about this. This could be, this is an example of what a pass pawn. This is a pass pawn. This thing right here. Pass pawn is a pawn that, actually no, there needs to be more stuff on here. I'm sorry, guys. Let me just, I'm sorry about that. There needs to be more pieces here. Let's do this, and let's do that. Let's just do that. Okay, this is a better example. So each side got a king, obviously. Both sides got 3 pawns, a knight, and a rook. Um, this, okay, like I said before, this is a passed pawn because the only thing that is blocking this pawn from promoting, right? It can move 2 squares here. The only thing that is blocking it from marching up there is pieces, right? There's no pawn here. Sorry, I'm very bad at drawing arrows. Here or here. That is the that this is an example of a pass pawn, right? And again, these are not pass pawns because this pawn will march into this pawn eventually, or it'll march into this pawn. So, just a quick thing there. Let me back up if I can. Okay, I can't. Let me just go back to full screen. Okay. So, let me just reiterate that. Point number 3 is pawn play, okay? Pawn play is very important. Sorry, pawn play is very important in the endgame, as you all know or should know. Again, let me just go over this one more time. Pawn play. Masters know the importance of creating passed pawns. Again, passed pawns are pawns that are only stopped by pieces, not pawns. Those become very important in the endgame. They use pawn majorities to create a winning. They use pawn majorities to create a winning position and push the pawn down the board, like we saw over here. And they never push pawns randomly. Every move serves a purpose. Okay? Every move serves a purpose. Point number 4 is opposition and key squares. This is more of a, I would say, at least for me, this is a little bit more of a theoretical point. The thing you need to get down about this, the thing you need to know is knowing how to use the opposition in king and pawn endgame. This is very critical, especially if it's a very it's a lesser known, like a, king and pawn versus king and pawn, or king and pawn versus king, which, again, if you don't know, I should make a video. I feel like I made a video about that at some point, but king and pawn versus king endgames, those are some of the, I mean, those are probably the most tricky endgames you could play, because if you get the wrong pawn, it can be a draw. If you get the right pawn in the right place, it can be a win for you. Oh, also, I myself had a game. Sorry, my nose is just really itchy. I had a game myself in a OTB game in my first ever chess tournament. You can check that out over here, I think. But it was the second round of my first ever OTB tournament, and I got this. I got a winning king and pawn versus king. Check that out. That was a crazy game. Definitely check that out. That was one of the best games. I mean, I think I've ever played. But anyway, back to this. So, opposition allows you to control key squares and force the opponent's king backward, okay? Let me just go over the point one more time so we can really cement this. And then after we're done with the points, we have one more point after this, then we'll get to the game. Make sure to stick around for that. You do not want to miss this. This is great game. Knowing how to use the opposition in king and pawn endgames is critical. Even world champions had to learn this. The opposition allows you to control key squares and force the opponent's king backward. Okay, so just imagine, you have king and pawn versus king, or king and two pawns versus king and one pawn, and the king is over there in the corner, and you're pushing. You got to know what pawn to push, otherwise it could be a stalemate. Otherwise, he could get out, and it could be just a whole mess. So you should really go. I mean, don't just take it from me because I'm by no means a professional. I mean, I've studied a good bit, but check it out from some masters. Maybe find a chessable course. Oh, also chess.com obviously has lessons on. Yeah, they have lessons on endgames, all kinds of endgames, and also if you want a discount on lessons, this is a great way to promote this product because I have a link down in the description where you can get a discount on your premium chess.com membership, no matter what rating you are, and you can get a discount. I think it's like a 40% discount if you get the yearly membership. Also, if you do that, if you do not know, that link that you'll be clicking down there for the premium memberships is an affiliate link. What does that mean? It means that you don't pay any extra for the membership or anything like that. It just means that because I introduce you to that, I get a little bit of kickback for telling you about chess.com. So I would appreciate that if you click that link. You will be definitely helping out your own chess game, and you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. So appreciate that. Okay, last but definitely not least is point number 5: conversion technique. Masters do not rush; they improve step by step. Activate the king, improve the pawns, restrict the opponent, and only push for promotion. Okay, they only then push for promotion after you do those other 3. Activate the king, which we talked about in point number 2. Improve the pawns, which is point number 3, and restrict the opponent, which is point number 4. So all of these things come together in point number 5. Only then do they push for promotion. Beginners often hurry and blunder. Those two things definitely are together, hurrying and blundering. But patience is the master's weapon. Definitely. Oh, that's a great line, actually. Patience is the master's weapon. I'm going to highlight that because that is a great line right there. Never mind. I'm not going to. Okay. These 5 points were great. I'm gonna go over them just one more time. Okay, I'm gonna just say the names. So we have the mindset shift, king activity, pawn play, opposition and key squares. Okay, again, kind of forcing the king back, making sure you're in the right position with your king and your pawns, making sure you're not going to get in a situation where your opponent could get one of your pawns or they could get a stalemate. And then lastly, but not leastly, conversion technique. Okay, and in closing, before we get to this amazing game, playing like a master in the end game isn't about memorizing every table-based position. It's about following the 5 habits, like I just mentioned, simplifying smartly and activating your king, and pushing for pass pawns. And yeah, besides that, being patient while converting to the advantage. If you can practice these ideas, you will start winning games you used to draw. With that being said, let us get into this game. And this has already been so long, man. We'll go quick. We gotta go quick. Okay. Become an endgame machine. Here we go. Ready? Again, Raul Capablanca is playing with the white pieces, and Tartakower is playing with the black pieces. d4, knight to f6, c4, e6. This is the Nimso Indian. Now you have knight to c3 and bishop to b4. Like I said, Nimso Indian. Knight to f3. Also been played for I don't know how many years. Castles, bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, c5, e3. We're going to go fast because we don't, it's already been pretty long. C takes, e takes, and now b6. Bishop to d3. I just want you guys to pay attention to how Capablanca plays this, because if you do not know, many people believe that, at least until Magnus came along, that's also debatable, but he was believed by many to be the best endgame player of all time. So with that being said, you'll want to stick to the endgame. You'll want to watch till the endgame. Castles, bishop to e7, rook to e1. So he's taken the much more positional route, which is, fine, obviously. D6, Rook to c1, he's just bringing every piece. He's getting ready. He is not allowing any of the pieces to get in. He brings the rooks, c1 and e1, obviously. Rook to e8, bishop to g3, a6, a3. Every move is improving, and every move is pushing back the opponent, like we said. Rook to c8, b4, restriction, like we said. Bishop to f8, knight to d2. Now he's rerouting. Now we have knight to b3, and bishop to h2. He does not want to trade because his bishop is very nice and powerful. Queen to g5. Now bishop to f1. Okay. He just wants to have as much stability, strength as he can on that pawn. Knight to f4. Now he takes. Now we have this. Okay. Notice that, he has the pawns here. He could maybe, beginners be like, oh, I'm going to open the blah, blah, blah. I'm going to open the position. Not that. Well, you can play that if you want. They're going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to do this. They blah, blah, blah. They do this. They blunder pieces. I'm like, well, yeah. First of all, that's just stupid. Nobody does that, even if you're a beginner, right? Please don't do that. This is what it could turn into. Yeah, you don't want that. Okay. Now you're gonna start rook up, which if you're white, I'm like, yeah, dude, don't do that. Do not just aimlessly trade. Again, it goes back into the other point. Like I said, beginners rush to trade. You do not need to rush to trade. Rook to c7. Knight e2. The pawns see each other. Queen to a8. Rook takes b7. Queen takes, and queen to f3. We have a queen trade, and the rooks double up. Knight f2. h5. He is just he's just restricting every piece. This is such a just like a, oh man, just the way he plays is just so like restricting the opponent, just like those points said. I keep going back to those points, but we need to. Those points are great. King to f2. d5, c5, restriction. Okay. Now the king goes to e2, knight to g4, rook to c3, bishop g7. King goes back. Now we take with the d pawn to you don't want to do this because please don't do that. You want to do this. Again, don't do that because you can just take the knight. King to d3, king to e7. Now we have this. We have trade and this, and we trade here. Okay. Now, positions equal. Keep watching, though. Notice those two passed pawns, okay? We have two passed pawns. And Capablanca is not going to let Tartakower off easy. Knight to c6. Again, he was believed by many to be the number one best endgame player of all time. a6. King to c3. Knight takes. Knight takes. Now we have this. Now he takes. Okay, so he gets rid of the pawn, but just keep watching. He has a knight for 2 pawns. Okay, now this is... Okay. Now it's equal. Now he's a knight up. Now we take. Okay, and Tartakower is just kind of sitting there. He doesn't have he doesn't have much to do. He can't move his pawn. Okay. And Capablanca is letting him feel that, He goes here, and Tartakower resigns, obviously, because you're going to go here, and you can just take. Okay? You can go here, but you can just go here. And what can you do? You can go here, but then you can just, it's over. Great. I think this is a great example of those points that I shared earlier, which are, again, let me just go over those one more time because I think we really got to hear it. Again, mindset shift is about seeing the endgame as an opportunity, not a chore, exchanging pieces, but keeping pawns. Again, beginners often do the opposite, trading pawns and keeping pieces, which reduces winning chances. Number 2, king activity. Speaks for itself. You got to get the king in there. get his hands dirty, you know, I guess, so to speak. Basically, just get him in there. The king is a fighter, not a bystander. Point number 3, pawn play. Look for ways to create passed pawns. Passed pawns are your best friend in the endgame. Number 4, opposition and key squares. Keeping the opponent's king kind of smothered behind your pawns, right? Also, controlling key squares, very vital. And number 5, conversion technique. Masters do not rush, they improve step by step, activating the king, improving the pawns, restrict the opponent, and then push for promotion. Beginners often hurry and blunder, but patience is the master's weapon. Okay, the game is over. The game was just as good or better than we thought. With that being said, if you want to learn any more videos about anything chess related and thinking like a master in the game of chess, you can check out my channel in the end screen right around here. And yeah, that's it. I mean, we learned so much in this video, right? Comment down below if you have any other ideas for videos. Check out the website, of course, in the About page. Again, check out chess.com premium membership so you can start on your endgame lessons today. You do not want to miss that. You do not want to, sit on your hands while that's just waiting for you at your fingertips on your computer or your phone or wherever you're at. With that being said, may you make merry on the chessboard, and I'll see you all in the next video.